No, that's because, I mean, I would assume it's because you live out here where there isn't, or wasn't at that time, a lot of population density, and people helped people. And I bet he thought, man, if you came out this far on Long Island, I'll take you the rest of the way.
True.
So I joke with a lot of my guests. I tell them if they go 1 mile farther east, that the earth actually falls off.
Touche.
So, and I've actually had a few guests who
Have fallen off?
who missed the turn and end up in Montauk, because there's also, and GPS really does you in, because there's an industrial drive in Montauk as well.
Right.
So, or an industrial road. So you have to be careful. If you make it out this far, you have pioneer stock.
Touche.
So this is a story about your childhood. It's obviously personally very satisfying to you. What does your audience who doesn't know anything about East Hampton, what is it that they get from your writing about this precious place, this place that's precious to you?
Right. I wrote it, it's a baby boomer coming of age tale. So we have millions of baby boomers who understand the juiciness, the sweetness of going to a drive-in movie and watching, bad films. I mean, I was
The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Creature from Black Lagoon. My favorite pairing at the Hamptons Drive-In was the Beatles documentary Let It Be, with If It's Tuesday, It Must Be Belgium. The only connection between the two, they're both set in Europe. That's about it. I think everybody has a penny candy shop in their childhood, from their childhood.
Yes.
A lot of folks remember falling in love with fast cars at our local racetrack, whether it was, big league or minor league. Once again, this book is about that special period, a special place at a special time where a kid learns how to be special. That does not have to be Wainscott or East Hampton or Sag Harbor. It can be any place around the world. So that was the attraction. Those are the sort of people I'm trying to bring in. Also folks who love literary journalism, poetic writing. Like Truman Capote, I like to make people linger and take your time over words. The reason I call this a crazy-ass memoir is that it's not chronological except for one thing. The chronology is how a young man, a young person, learns to appreciate, understand the dynamics of people and places. What can I say? Crazy-ass memoir.
Well, I think the fact that you were in an environment where you could linger over what you were doing. You had the time. And I think my childhood was the same way. I could really linger over things. I wasn't in such a rush. And my learning experiences really kind of revolve around places like the New York City subway system.
Right.
And Central Park and the museums. I mean, we thought nothing of just getting on the bus and the subway, going into the city at the age of 11 and wandering around the museums.
Yep.
And so,
and did your parents ever worry about you?
No. I think they worried, but I think they allowed me to. I mean, I had some terrifying experiences, which I won't go into, but still in all, I had street smarts because I lived there. And I knew enough to, extricate myself from the situations. But
well, it sounds similar. My growing up sounds similar to yours. Out here, people who moved here recently can't get over the fact when I tell them that I don't remember ever a car being on my tail when I was riding my bike out here. Riding, from Wainscott all the way to Southampton, riding to Montauk, whatever. Right. It was very safe, and your parents let you have the lay of the land. What I wanted to say about the crazy-ass memoir is that this is a book of meditations. It's a book of essays. It's made to be read a chapter at a time. Once again, that special place and how it teaches a kid to be special. People have asked me, how could you remember all this stuff? My memory was sharpened out here. I really got a memory out here. And that was partly because when you ride your bike, you have a panorama. You have the the potato fields, you have the meadows, you have the ocean, you have the ponds.
And you're moving slowly.
You're moving slowly. You don't have a car on your tail. And you have the time. You cannot help but take it all in and do the 360 or 270. And that's how my memory got sharpened. I also relied on interviews and microfilm. I kind of killed my eyes by reading the old microfilm of the East Hampton Star.
Oh, God, remember that black, it was white letters on black, microfiche?
Yes, I know. We're happy that's...
yeah, a thing of the past, thank God. That's
hardly
gone.
a thing of
That's
the
one thing that we don't need to keep. So when you left here, how did you develop into a journalist?
Well, I have to tell you why we left here first. The reason the book sort of ends in 1972 is that my father, who was facing some financial difficulties and once again was drinking too much and had depression, sold the house on Whitney Lane in Wainscott without my mother's permission. So he kind of pulled this magic carpet from under my feet. Really pissed me off. Had never been as angry at him before. So sold the house. We moved back to our house in New Rochelle, New York, where I ended up graduating from high school. It was a writing that I learned to love out here, from Jake Murray, Truman Capote, and reading the East Hampton Star, which remains a very fine weekly newspaper, that made me want to be a journalist. It was the characters I kind of collected out here that made me want to write about people for a living. I'll tell you one story. There's a chapter in the book about the East Hampton Star and why it made me a journalist. Another reason why this is a crazy-ass memoir. In a general memoir, who writes about a newspaper? Folks don't remember that in 1971, the East Hampton Star and Jack Graves, my favorite writer, who's still at the Star, broke the story of Grey Gardens.
Right.
Big Edie and Little Edie Beale in this mansion that they had left to go to seed in East Hampton. And they happened to be relatives of Jackie Kennedy, Bouvier. So I became a journalist out here, and doing this book allowed me to repay that favor.
Yeah, well, it's a labor of love.
Without a doubt.
And it's amazing that you, I always am very interested in people who can write a book and that their life has something to do with writing, because mine didn't. I often wonder how I got here. But do you have any tips for writers?
I have tips for writers and non-writers, and that is, if you have a memoir in your wheelhouse, put it down. Doesn't matter if it's scraps, fragments, put it down and then start asking around people who were important to you. Connect the dots, create that mosaic. This memoir is not only important to me, it's important to the friends I grew up with. It has given my mother, Pat, and my sister, Meg, pleasant memories of an often painful past. Therapeutic like you wouldn't believe. So if it's in your brain, put it on paper.
Yeah, memoirs are very popular now.
And that's the other thing. The market is, people are crazy for them. They read, you put memories down, and if people are of your age, they'll see something in your life that reminds them of their life.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And people do wish to escape the present.
Amen.
It was great to have you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for having me.